Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. Today I've got one more repair to this Twilight Zone. It's all worked up except for this one little gash. Not really a little gash, it's kind of a big gash. The plywood's popped off of here, or the outer layer of plywood. Not real noticeable if you're standing back, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I want to fill that in and repaint it. So I'm gonna do that. Well, I'm not gonna paint it. I'm gonna let Jane paint it, but I'm gonna fill it in. So what I am intending to fill it in with, I'm going to use epoxy. So my other hobby is sailing, so I had some marine epoxy. Also had this stuff. So these are little micro beads, and they do two things. They make it so once this epoxy sets up, it makes it so that it's softer. So we're not soft, but so you can sand it. So it doesn't set up quite as hard. The other thing is when you put enough of this in there, you can get the epoxy so that it has like a peanut butter texture so that it won't drip, which really makes a lot better system. So it's you could use Bondo if you wanted, but I'm gonna use this. So you just mix this up per the directions, like 1 squirt to 1 squirt. I've got the little measuring squirters. So I'm gonna do just a little bit and add the little beads. And I say beads, it's got like the texture of, it's like flour, basically. It's really small granular things, and it's super light. I mean, this thing weighs nothing, and it's half full. So I'm gonna mix a little of that up. Get a plastic spade or something, and square that off. Maybe put tape on the bottom and just fill that in, and probably let it set up overnight. And then tomorrow, sand it up, and then I'm gonna let Jane have the fun and painting it back. And that's kind of a crosshatch pattern, so that'll be somewhat hard to duplicate, but it'll be better than that. And that's actually not that bad. Somebody's painted it black, so you really don't notice it too badly. But again, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So this will be a better repair than just painting it black. So that's my intention. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take the sanding block, if Django doesn't need it, and I'm just going to scratch this up. It's kind of rough, but I'm going to scratch it up a little bit more just so the epoxy will have a little bit more tooth to grab onto. I really don't think there's an issue because it's got a lot of texture, macro texture, but I'm going to give it some micro texture. Django, there's nothing in here for food. It's just, you just want to be a star, don't you? Whatever I'm doing, you're in the middle of it. I've got the pumps installed on my cans, and I've got this 105, and I'm using the 205 hardener, which is the fast hardener. So I have a pot time of 9 to 12 minutes. That's for a cup. I don't have a full cup. Plus this is probably only 60 degrees, the temperature of it, which will lengthen the time. So a thin film lasts an hour. So I'll have 15 or 20 minutes if I just put a little bit in here. I'm only gonna mix up a little bit. So I'm going to do that, and maybe I'll tape at the bottom of it first, and then I'll mix this up, add in some beads, mix that all together, and then get it peanut buttery kind of a texture so it won't run at all, and then lay it up in there. So I laid a piece of masking tape. You can see underneath there. I think you can. And so I'll just make that flat on that bottom edge. Not really a big deal, but make it look a little bit nicer if you're underneath the game. And so let's go mix it up. So this stuff is real easy to measure with these pumps. So just one pump to one pump. I've got to prime this thing. So that's one pump. As soon as you feel resistance, you go ahead and stop and fill it up and get the full pump. This thing, oh, there it goes. I see it coming through there. Okay, there's one pump. I think I'm going to do one more on both of them. I'll do 2 pumps each. That way I should have plenty. That should be way more than I need, which is good. Now I'm going to get a spoon and spoon some of this stuff in there. And I don't know if there's a better way to do it. I just put enough in there and I mix it, put some more, mix it, put some more, mix it until I get the consistency that I want. So this inside this, I mean, I try not to breathe this stuff. It's probably give you emphysema, if not cancer. I'll try a spoonful, and I'm gonna mix this up for a little bit. So that first spoonful, it's thicker, but it's not near enough. So I'm gonna go get a few more spoons because I don't want to stick this back into that can of beads. It'll make a big clump in there. Go for a second. I may put a spoonful and a little bit more. This heaping spoon and a half. I guess if I get too much, I can add some more epoxy, but I'd rather not. Yeah, it's starting to get thick now. Kind of balling up. I want this stuff fairly thick. That's not going to be quite enough. But we're getting closer. Do that one more time. One. I think this is going to surely be enough. I may have put too much in there actually. I'm going to use both hands so I can hold the cup, and I'll bring you back when I get mixed. It is still a little too runny. It's still drippy. I don't want it dripping. Don't want that. So I'm going to go one more. I'll put two of them in there, and surely this will be enough. It's getting hard to stir with one hand, which means I must be getting close. I'll start with two hands and I'll bring you back. Okay, I think I got it about where I want it. I mean, it's pretty thick. It's flowing, but just a little bit. And it's also starting to get a little bit warm, so it's starting to set off. So I need to go ahead and get this in the game, or on the game here pretty quick. All right, I got this all set up here. I don't know how I'm gonna actually stick it on there. I really don't want to get it too far, mess up any more of the paint than the gash. So I don't want to smear it up too high. I don't want it sticking up real high where I have to sand forever to get it out. If you're a paint and body guy, you're probably just crying over the way I'm doing this, but I'm not a paint and body guy by any means. Got a little experience with setting bricks, but just a little bit. Very little doing stuff like this. Probably might need to wet this. I'm not sure. It's kind of really dragging it badly. A little bit on the leg right there. Probably easier to get off now than later. I'm gonna see if I can get some water on my spatula here and see if that helps me out just a little bit. So I cleaned off my spatula. I've got a wet towel. I'm hoping that will kind of help. I don't know. It's really pretty tacky. I managed to drop a big old glob of it on the floor. That's nice. Every time I smooth it out, I dig a hole. I may have to just, I think, be happy with it, having it too high and then come back and sand it. I think that's gonna be the better solution. I may have got it slightly too thick. It doesn't want to spread. So tacky. yeah, that last coat, every time I do a last pass, I put a hole in it. I try to fill it up, and then you wet this down, see if I can. Okay, I'm gonna try one more time, then I'm just gonna maybe use my finger or give up. Maybe I should just leave it tall, leave it a little proud, and okay, I'm happy with that, I think. I'm gonna just clean this bottom off. Okay, definitely not perfect, but it's gonna be dark. I can sand it, and it's gonna be painted dark. I think it will be pretty unnoticeable. That's the goal, is to get this to the point where unless I show somebody, it's not gonna stand out. The way it was before, you could see it. I mean, I found it and I wasn't looking for it at all. So that's the goal. So it's about an hour later, and the epoxy in this cup, I mean, it's hard, and then you get, except like on the rim, it's still sticky, and even right here, it's still kind of, I mean, you can see I'm spreading it with my finger. So basically what happens is when it's in a big bowl like this, it gets hot, and it even melted the cup. It got really warm. That's what epoxy does when it cures. It generates a lot of heat. So if you have a big pile of it, it gets hot, and that makes it react even faster, and that makes even more heat. So it can actually get super hot, hot enough to melt this plastic anyway. So I was thinking I might come over here and see if this was done, but I'm sure it's not. So I'm gonna let this probably just cure overnight. Sometimes dealing with stuff, if you can sand it before it gets hard, or it's just medium hard, it sands real easily, and but it's got to be at least brittle, so it will sand and not smear. So it's not there yet. So it's got to stay at least a couple more hours, and I'm probably not going to be here that much longer. So I'll probably look at this in the morning and just sand it then. So it's the next day, and I've got this thing is all hardened up. I've got some 220 grit here on the block, and I'm going to sand that off and try not to sand anywhere that's still got the original. I shouldn't say paint, the original sticker, and sand this a little bit smoother. So I sanded this down, and I see that my filling job was pretty sorry. I ended up using a file on this. I just put up there and put my fingertip under the tip of this so it didn't make any contact with it. It got a little cavity in there, so I'm gonna have to mix up some more of this and lay a little bit more. There's a cavity right basically through there, and then sand it again, and then I'm gonna have Jane paint it. So fun. So I mixed up a little bit more. I left it a little runnier so I can maybe get it up in that little hole and maybe get it smoothed out a little bit better. It may drip on the floor too, so maybe I'll throw a paper towel down first. Okay, it's the next day. It's hardened up, and I still think it might be a little bit low right there. I don't know. It still slid down. I tried to make it a little runnier so I could get it all filled in, and I think it might have been a little too runny. We're gonna see. I'm gonna get the file and file it down and see where we end up. And that's about 3 or 4 minutes with the file. I'm thinking I'm gonna get a Dremel and maybe try to get it down. It is actually higher than the cabinet everywhere. I don't have any low spots. Well, low relative, but not low compared to the cabinet. So it's just hard to get this file and keep the tip of it off the cabinet when I'm filing, because I'm putting my fingertip at the end of this to keep it off. And so, you know, I'm gonna have to get something else. I'm gonna get a Dremel with a little sanding wheel, or probably one with a sandstone, and get a little bit lower. Well, I think I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to leave the rest of it to Jane and see what kind of magic she can do. Fortunately, it's kind of almost like a shadowy image, so there's nothing real sharp on it with all the dithering. So, and really, there's the T here, and then the rest of this is just it'd be like this. So it's just kind of a fade. So I think most of it, if she nails it, it's this thing is what you see there is just going to go away. It looks kind of like it did before, except less three-dimensional. No comment?
I don't know. You're the one that did it.
I didn't do
That was easy.
Django's jealous of all the fun you're having.
Yes.
Well, are you going to paint it gray or what?
What do you mean paint it gray?
It's just black. You going to leave it black?
No, I'm not going to leave it black.
Okay, well, I'm just checking in.
But the black is the dominant color, so everything else.
Ah, okay, so you're doing black first. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Django's going to help. Okay, so Jane's done with the Twilight Zone. You can't even tell where she painted it. Not from here anyway. You're just walking up, playing the game, never going to notice it. Now, if you get really close, yeah, you can see it. This was about the 7th time she did it. This is super hard to make it look like, I mean, you just can't paint like that, or she can't, and I can't. But, yeah, you back up a little bit, it's really pretty good. Better than it was. First, it's structurally sound. I mean, that's epoxy in there, so it's stout. It's not going to fry off, break. And not just painted black. It's pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's just watercolor. She'll probably put a little Varathane just over the top of it to protect that paint so it doesn't smudge off, and because it's pretty delicate without some kind of protecting on it. And then this one will be ready, 100% ready to go. And if you like this video, click like and subscribe. Adios.